flying over Iran when the bombs started falling. Today's episode of the Live Faith First podcast is a story from Finny Abraham, and he had just left Dubai. He was an hour or two into his flight over Iran when the bombs started falling. They circled him back around, and it took him another 6 days and 4 more flights, taxi rides across the desert, and an amazing experience showing Jesus' hope with people who were in fear and wondering what was going to happen in their life. So sit down and enjoy this amazing episode of the Live Faith First podcast. Travel had been perfect. It was the 7th flight in 7 days, and everything with his travel had gone smoothly until he took off from the Dubai airport. It was Saturday, February 28th, and as soon as our guest got over Iran, the bombs started dropping. It began a harrowing and amazing journey back home to the U.S. So, Finny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am excited to hear your story. You and I are friends and colleagues, and so I've heard some of it, and I can't wait to share this with people so they can hear a little bit about your journey from San Francisco to India, back through Dubai, and then this craziness that just broke loose there. So as we get started, would you give us a cliff notes of your life? Where were you born? Where were you raised? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, hey, excited to be here and to share this. And as I shared with you just before, I'm processing this still, and I process by sharing and talking. So thanks for listening, and hopefully I pray that it will be glorifying God in the process. Yeah, so I was actually born in UAE, in Dubai. My parents were working there, and I was there till about 10 years old, and then moved to South India, in Kerala. My dad wanted to do full-time ministry, so we came back home. And I was in India for another, 11 or 12 years, and then finished my master's in social work, and I came to Fuller Seminary in California, and continued my theological studies here. So usually when people ask me where I'm from, it is a tough question because every 10 years I've been in different places. I've been in the United States the most now. I've been here for the last almost 18 years. I'm married to my wife, Susan, who also has an interesting story. She was born in Paraguay, raised in LA, and ethnically Korean. And we have 3 kids. We have 3 under 6. My oldest is 6, and we have twins who are 4.5. I am one of the pastors at WestGate Church here in Silicon Valley. And I also get to work alongside with Elliot as we work part of a nonprofit called Coalition Alleviating Poverty, Silicon Valley. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it's actually a great setup for how this is going to, with the family piece, how that impacts this whole story around Dubai. Now, you had gone out to India. Well, hopefully we can get to that a little bit near the end.
Right.
But so you're flying back home now. It's Saturday, February 28th. You're in the Dubai airport. Everything's on time. You take off. Would you start from there and kind of start walking us through this story as your airplane got in the air, moving towards Iran?
Yeah, and before this trip, just from news and other things, I was aware that something is going to happen. Just so I was tracking this news. So every plane I took, every time we landed, I was like, oh, this is great. Nothing has happened so far. So I got to the last one. Everything is on time, and it started. I'm on the air. I think so. We had our first meal. We have crossed more than 2 or 3 hours, I think, and by this time I'm like, we're good. I'm going to land on a Saturday morning back in California. We have all kinds of plans once I land here with my family. And it's a giant plane, right? It's an A380. So it's like a double-decker kind of a plane. And I don't know if it is because it was such a giant plane. It was so much in control. There was no, weird turbulences, nothing. Everything's so calm. And when things are calm, usually you rarely hear from the pilot, right? And suddenly we hear this thing from the pilot, that, um, hey, I'm your pilot. And as you might have seen, he said, which I'm sure no one might have seen it, we are taking a different route because the Iran airspace is closed, and there's been attack in Iran. And I think so. He communicated it just so professionally and so great. And even at that time, we all were thinking that, oh, we're taking a D route and getting back to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then right there, Emirates have live TV, so all of us are going into live TV, seeing what is going on, hearing. All of us are aware now there is officially this attack. It is actually happening. As I started looking into this, I think so. We are Iran time about 10:30 or 11, which means that we are half an hour into the main attacks. Over 200 planes over there, close to 100 or so missiles, Tomahawk missiles, all kinds of stuff going underneath, as this plane is going, which just thinking about itself is pretty terrifying. And our flight made the decision to get back. So we took about, I don't know, 3 hours to get right there. It took about another 3.5, 4 hours to get back because our plane was, at one point, it was just stopped, trying to probably understand what the next steps are. Yeah. And even through the process, even when we were landing in Dubai, none of us were thinking that we were going to be stuck in Dubai. None of that. We are like, the plane is going to go again, and we're going to go because we are in the plane, right? Yeah. So we're going to get back to San Francisco, and that's what the pilot was telling. But by that time, we saw all planes kind of getting out of the airspace of Iran. And then the pilot said, we're going to land, and the ground team will let you know what's next. I was still thinking that we're going to get the next plane, not at all thinking what will happen in the next few days. So that is what actually happened in the plane as we landed. And, one of the things I started remembering, so I'm talking all these things to a guy who's sitting right next to me. And I'm like, he was visiting California for work. And he's like, well, I guess I'm going to tell my boss and I'm going to go back to my country. I'm not going to come to America. I'm like, okay, we're talking about all of that. It was great. I had just somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
The guy who was sitting next to me slept through the whole process, which I thought was amazing. Like when we got up, he's like, what happened? What we're back? And I'm like, dude, there's so much happened. And then I told him, though, I wish I could sleep like you. Like, he just slept through the whole thing, didn't know nothing. And but I thought, just remembering, I thought that was interesting. And so that is how we got back to Dubai.
Yeah. Okay. So in Dubai, at this point, this is just a delay. Like, you're just figuring like, hey, I'll get back, there'll be another flight going out tomorrow or, in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And because that's how flights go. Things get diverted, somebody does something stupid on an airplane, they have to land.
Right.
You just take off again and you keep going on the route that you were, supposed to be on. But that is not what took place. So you've described kind of the Dubai airport lobby. Now, Dubai airport, and I have not been there, it's a massive airport. Am I correct?
It's a massive airport. It's a major hub for that region. I've been there many, many, many times. I have never seen Dubai airport which is closed. With this, by the time we landed, the airport was closed, meaning no one was coming in. So only planes that are landing or folks who are in there were trying to get them out. Yeah. So once I got out of the plane, obviously then you have to walk to get your bag, which means that you have to clear immigration, and a complete chaos. Nobody knew what the next steps were. As I was walking out, I could just see just heads, on the, like when I'm coming down towards the lobby there, thousands of people. I don't even know how to put a number on it, but definitely over 2,000-3,000 people, probably more than that. And complete chaos. Some folks need immigration. Some folks don't need immigration. People who have American visa don't need it. People who don't have it. It was just utter chaos, and everyone trying to figure out where do we go. But one thing, got to give it up for the UAE government is I think so they were quick to respond, and they were very caring through the process. The
Hmm.
lines were so much. It took me about 3.5 hours to get out of the airport. So from
Wow.
my plane just to the bus out there took about 3.5 hours, and they cut a lot of processes. They said that you don't have to go and get a hotel voucher, just get to the bus, we'll get you to a hotel. So
Yeah.
they're trying to get
Wow.
everybody outside. And during that time, I remember a lot of kind people, all kinds of people are talking, right? Everyone are trying to figure out. I remember talking to a guy who was behind me. I think so. He was Russian. There were families with kids, and the lines were just like so crazy. And then the airport people came and got us some sort of box that had water. And man, I'm
Oh
telling
wow.
you, there was two dates in there. In Emirat, it was so good. I don't know if I was hungry or if it was the best date in my life. It was legit. It was tasty. It was just what I needed: water and dates.
And when he says date, we're talking about the fruit. We're talking about a date, not like a date on the water bottle.
No,
Yes,
no,
yes.
no.
Just two
This
sweet, yummy. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I filled my. That's all I needed. I didn't need lunch. I was ready, and it was amazing. People were just giving it water for everybody who needs it. All of that. And in the process we went through, and I didn't go through any process like getting a hotel voucher or whatever. They got me to the bus, and I'm in a bus, and that's where I meet the first friend who would actually help me throughout the process. Indian guy who was from India, and he was sitting right next to me in the bus, and we got connected, and we got to the hotel.
Yeah. Okay. So you're out of the airport. You got
Yeah.
through with that chaos, but it sounds like you just walk into like another lobby of chaos. So, and were you aware at that point that like a bomb had been shot at the Dubai airport,
Hmm. You
or
didn't.
like it hit maybe one of the other larger hotels? Doesn't sound like it was yours. Were you aware
Yeah.
of that at all?
No, at that time, no bombs, nothing are coming. Now, I think so. We are probably around 4:30 or 5 o'clock by the time I am PM. By the time I'm close to the airport outside, my flight started at 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
So by it's evening time. By the time I get to the hotel, it's about 6:30.
Okay.
I heard the first sound around, I think so, around 7 o'clock or 7:15. That's when I heard the first uh, interception sound. And I'll explain a little bit about that. But it was interesting. I was born in Dubai, raised in Dubai for some time. I have some family there. Dubai is one of the most safest places that I know. Throughout this whole process, no major wars or none of these things there. So I knew that even something is happening in Iran just based on my understanding of geopolitics and all of that. I knew that even if Iran is going to do something, it will do something to Doha, which has a bigger U.S. base, and probably not United Arab Emirates, because they don't even allow their airspace for any attack, none of that stuff.
Hmm.
So I was like, even if it is happening, it's going to happen in Doha. We'll be okay. But I was in front of the hotel, probably about 500 to 800 people trying to get into a hotel room. And again, full chaos, people waiting in lines. And as we were waiting, there's when I heard the first big sound of an
Hmm.
interception.
Hmm.
I've never
Hmm.
heard an interception. I didn't know the interception was another missile actually hitting a missile. And it was so loud. And the thing I thought at that time was, if an interception is so loud, what would it mean for an actual missile falling on the ground or a building? I think it's a very, very terrifying, traumatic experience for whoever goes through that. So, regardless of where people or whoever, all of us are with our understanding about war or whatever it is, I think this is. I mean, just normalizing this is not right. War
Hmm.
is crazy. It is tough. I think so. At least me. I don't want to generalize. At least me. My understanding of F-15s and these big sounds and all was when, Super Bowl happens, you see this exhilarating, it's great. But the sound of war was crazy. So when the first sound hit, I still didn't think it was a missile. I thought something happened to the building. I literally thought something fell down. It was very loud. So I went out to see what this is, and I could see debris falling, and people telling it's a missile, and that's when I realized, oh, this is not happening in Iran. I'm probably in the middle of a war zone, and that sunk. Just the fact that if this thing can come this close, it could probably hit this building. There are a lot of Americans in this building. And all thoughts are coming, this could be a target, all kinds of stuff. And I walk back into the lobby where my line is, and I see people terrified. This is grown men and women crying. And I was terrified too. And I walk in, and the first thing I thought was, wow, we are in the middle of a war and anything bad could happen in the next few hours. And how do I explain this to my family? These are the first things I'm thinking. By this time, I did call Susan. It was nighttime here in California, but as soon as I landed, and I did tell her what's going on. One small detail in the whole process, one of the best decisions Susan made before I went to India was she asked me to buy a new phone. I had a very old phone. And man, I'm telling you, all these small details are very important because that phone would not have survived like 30 minutes of conversation. It would just die. Batteries terrible. And I made the best decision. I felt that this could last for hours, and it could do cold calls and all of that. I could send pictures and it was fun. It was a good phone, just to say. It's not because I couldn't afford it. I was just lazy to get a new one.
So for all you husbands out there, if your wives tell you to buy a new phone, I'm saying you got to listen.
You better,
especially when you're traveling. You got to listen. Hey, before you get into your conversation with Susan and the family, I'd like to stick just one more minute here because I'm born and raised in the U.S., so I have not experienced war. I love that analogy you use of, man, oh man, when I'm at a baseball game, football game, sports game, and like those jets fly over, man, it's like, it pumps you up. Like it's an exciting, like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. Those are so powerful. Would you just break down a little bit, like as you were watching or hearing and seeing bomb coming your direct, maybe not at you specifically, but it's aiming at the country and the region that you're in. What were some of your observations? What were your feelings? Did you have a physical response? Can you let us in a little bit on kind of what that moment was like when you realized what was really happening around you?
Yeah, well, the first sound, it was a very loud sound. So the first thing I remember is it was a very, very loud sound. And I was not expecting it to be a missile or anything. So, and then when I realized it was a missile, I think so. My reaction was fear. I thought that another one could come right behind it, and it will hit the building. And I felt like, and people were also try and come in the middle of the building and don't stand near the gates or the windows. And so my first reaction was fear and this thought that, I could die. So there was this thought that this is going to end here, and it was disbelief. I was like, how did I end up here? And then my next thought quickly was that I'm going to call Susan, and I'm not going to tell her about the bombs, but my thought was I just want to see her and the kids. So I did FaceTime. And the kids were in the room, in the bedroom. I said, go to their bedroom because I just want to see them. And my thought was, if something is going to happen, that's how it's going to end. They need to see me. I need to see them. And, it stops. So I did think that. So there were two things I thought that time. And this is very fascinating. This is the part of how the formation in my life because of my walk with Jesus, I realized had a very huge role in that moment, quick decisions being made and all of that. Two things stood out to me. The number one thing I realized was the thing that stands out the most in my life at that time was the formation that God has done in my life, whatever it may be so far. Things I was able to overcome, things I'm not able to overcome. The fact that Jesus is in my life and whatever he has done in my life sticks. And the second thing is my family. All the other things that I thought that is me, that I do, that is connected to my identity because of my work or my life, none of that was important. So none of the ministry stuff I did, working for the poor or local compassion, which is what I do here at WestGate, the people here, the friends, nobody came to mind. And I'm just being honest, what was most important was I thought, if here is how it's ending, this is the formation that God has done in my life so far. I'm 40 years old, and here it is. This is what you have done in my life, Jesus. Thank you. And my family, right? So there are only these two things. Whereas when I look into my daily calendar, if these are the most two important things, I walk with Jesus and your family, and I look into my calendar, it's always filled with a lot of things. It's the next important meeting, the next important problem to solve in ministry, the next person to meet for a great opportunity to do ministry, right? The next conversations that I need to have in order to give vision for people to understand the ministry stuff we are doing. All that seems to be the most important thing. And one of the things that I've learned since then is that what does it look like for me to invest time in things that last, and then also know that ministry is a season that God has put me in this chair for a time. Be faithful with it, and it will move on because it's God's ministry, it's not ours. And this could be for anything in life, even if you're not in ministry. You're in a season there for a purpose, and that none of that things will last. It will come and go, but what will last is your walk with Jesus and the formation that God has done in you and your family. So one of the things I've taken from this is, and maybe we'll talk this at the end, but I quickly want to mention it because it's coming now, is, sometimes I feel like the next problem to solve is the most important thing. And if there is anything connected to my family or my walk with Jesus is coming that needs to be more important, I'm going to focus on that. And right now I'm in the middle of it. It's only been a couple of weeks. I may get back into the life of Silicon Valley, but I want to remember that. I'm hoping that the Holy Spirit will remind me that I would be able to say no for the things that would last. So that is a big lesson that I've learned, that I've processed since then. But getting back to where I was, right in the middle of it, and the first reaction I had was fear that I'm going to die. Another missile could come, and then talk to Susan and the kids.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of gold there, y'all. So just go back and listen to that again if you missed anything. Lots of gold there. I'm going to keep moving with your story. So from there, my understanding is you go back into the lobby. Were you taking the call from like outside? Were that where you were when you took the call with
No,
Susan?
I took the call back inside the lobby.
Okay.
I saw all the debris come in, came back in, standing in my line. And then what happens there forward is also interesting because I come in and I see all this men and women, most people crying, like literally crying out of, I think so the sound was so large and heavy that the only reaction was to cry. It was not because they were just crying only out of fear. I think so. It was just sound was just that loud.
Yeah.
And
these are adults. These are adults. Grown men and women. These are just people who've been through a bunch in your life. You're going to assume just based upon what it takes to get to the age that they're at. Okay. Right. And they're crying.
and they're crying, and they're looking like they're trying to figure things out for the next step. But I think so they also realize they're in the middle of a war, in a second.
Yeah.
And there's something really interesting happened to me as I looked around and I saw folks crying. And something in me very quickly, and I thank God for this. I thank Jesus for this. Um, that and maybe I'm a pastor, so my pastor instincts came, and I was like, I need to say something, So quickly to the person next to me, I said, "Oh, everything is going to be okay. Don't worry, we'll be fine. But we'll have to wait. But when we wait, let's wait with hope." So those are the words that came from me. Like even as I said this, I felt, oh wow, that's some interesting thing you just said, and that's why I think it was truly from God. It was from the Holy Spirit. I said, while we're waiting, let's wait with hope. And later I realized that this is actually worse from Paul when he talks about, I think so to the Ephesians, when he talks about death. He talks about, do not grieve like people who do not have hope. Grieve like people who have hope, wait with hope. And so, so then quickly I started realizing in a second, I remembered, our lead pastor, Jay at WestGate, he always talks about one thing when we are trying to live the way of Jesus here in Silicon Valley. He says, look for people who are in a crisis or a quest. And, I'm part of the staff. This is like in our DNA. We always think about this. And suddenly I realized, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of an ocean of people who are in a crisis. And God has me for some purpose. I'm here. God has me here for some purpose. We're going to be okay. All these people are going to be okay. But I need to somehow communicate hope. And I started talking to the next person. It's like, hey, it's going to be okay, but we have to wait with hope. And then I realized people were willing to listen and to hear. Somehow it came out with me with ease, and people were listening it with ease. And then suddenly I realized, oh, that's why I'm here for. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to talk with people. I'm not going to be afraid. Now, here's the thing. As I'm doing this, I realize this is actually helping me. So I this is something that I thought through after coming here, that this was not only because, oh, this is my training, I'm a pastor, this is automatically happened, this is what I would do. But I think so this is serving another person this way was also forming me, that Jesus was doing something in me, giving me confidence, but also that was the only thing I could do. Like none of my connections or my resources, nothing was at need there. What I could actually only do is to help another person to be sane in that moment. And somehow the time went fast. So 1 hour became 3 hour, 3 hour became 4 hour. Like I could just move on instead of just sitting in waiting for so long, wondering what is going to happen. And so quickly I realized I'm here for a purpose, and I'm going to continue to talk about hope. And that led to the end of the day. That day, we got our rooms. By the way, great accommodation, all of that. UAE government needs to be, I'm so grateful for them. Food 3 times, shelter, all of that was great. So next day, I come for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I met with a lot more people.
Wow.
And through this time, I think the Holy Spirit is teaching me how to talk about hope in a very natural way. I ended up talking to an Iranian person who actually has her mom back in Iran, and she's coming to the United States. I shared about this is part of my faith in Jesus, that I'm sharing this, and she was very receptive. A lot of Bay Area people. I'm in a WhatsApp group now that has about like 60 some people in the WhatsApp group, all of them who have experienced this. And yeah, that sustained me.
Wow.
So it is interesting that I realized that serving someone else during this time was was forming me at the same time was the only thing that would sustain me to kind of move forward.
Filling you as well.
Hmm.
Okay. So I want to I have two like directions I want to reframe this. One, I think I've heard you say that as a child you were tremendously shy. Is that how I've heard you describe yourself? Like just as
I,
a child that you weren't an outgoing kind of
yeah,
talkative. Is that right?
and not just as a child. Even I think I'm an introverted person, and yeah, I talk to friends a lot, so I talk to you a lot, but but I would consider myself as a introverted person who would talk at the end, not in the beginning.
And I don't know how many hours, but it sounds like you spent 4, 6, 8 hours in a hotel lobby just being what I would call a little butterfly going around, just spreading hope. Am I describing that appropriately?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people are hanging out there. I could sit in my room. I realized that it was more depressing just to sit in the room and think about the possibilities of what could happen. I decided that I'm just going to go to the lobby. And then at one point, the Holy Spirit reminded me to do some prayer walks. So I was just walking around asking God, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything. You want me to talk to somebody, eye contact with somebody, pray for somebody who's crying? And this was a amazing moment because I honestly didn't have anything else to offer or do other than be available for God, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't have anything else. And it was a freeing experience, a powerful experience.
Yeah.
And I walked up and down the lobby, praying for people. And I remember, this one person that I met who lives in Sacramento. She texted me via WhatsApp, and she said, "It was a blessing just talking to you. I don't know. There was some level of peace I experienced as we were talking, and I know that is not me. It is the Holy Spirit, and it was so much fun to do that. So let me add that it was actually a lot of fun to do that. I mean, I was not afraid after that.
Yeah. And this, again, this coming from an introvert, this is coming from a person who, and I think if it were me, I would probably be in the hotel room. That's just, but I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but, and like just obsessing over how am I going to get home? Like, I think I would be sitting there like, okay, what are my flight options? Who can I talk to? Where, let's kind of, instead of the way you're describing it, God laid his hand of peace on you. Like he just kind of gave you this comfort and that you could go and do ministry kind of in the midst of war, bombs falling, loud noises, and this group of people who are, as you've already said, are in crisis, and how God just placed you there in order to minister, whatever that might look like.
And by the second day, I think so based on numbers, I think so the first day had over 200 ballistic missiles to Dubai metropolitan area, which is the size of New York City. And I think so by the second or third day, the number is close to 500 or 600 or something. And it's getting normal. Like you're hearing a boom and you're like, well, that's that. And, you're getting emergency calls and all that stuff. And people are getting used to it. And so the conversations are changing and we're becoming friends because we are in the middle of a crisis. And during that time, from the very first day, I have heard a way out of this, which is to drive to Oman, which is a country right next to UAE. But the first day I shared this with Susan and she's like, no, you should not be driving out. That sounds crazy. But then I said, well, it's just scary everywhere. I mean, this is a hotel filled with American people and this thing can get hit, I mean, so there is nowhere safe. Nothing is safe here. But I remember telling one thing to her, and this is so weird that I even said this. I was like, hey, if God has me for these people, I should not be rushing. We'll see what happens at the right time. It's so weird I said this. I told this to Susan, it's like, hey, if this is what it is, like, because I had so much peace with that. And I'm telling you, I'm not even a below average evangelist. it is very difficult for me to go out there and tell my thoughts to others. I can think with people, do, I can process with people, I can make my case, all of that. But man, there was something beautiful in the ease of it,
Hmm.
at no expectations of it. Like, I loved it, and one thing is, I mean, that's when maybe you're called to be a pastor, so like, that's great. It feels like that's the right space for you. But I did tell her, hey, if that's the case, maybe I should stay, and so the first day we decided not to do it. It was a couple of decisions. Basically, it's not safe, plus seems like you're doing what God has asked you to do. But the second day, end of it, my friend that I met in the bus, the Indian guy, he came and talked to me, and he said, hey, I'm planning to go to Oman. I have a friend of mine who can take us to the Muscat airport. Do you want to join? I had 10 minutes. He said, car's going to come in 10 minutes. You may need to make a decision. So I talked to Susan, and she was here at church that day. It was Sunday. And I think so after church, she prayed, and she felt she was okay too. And I'm not a person who makes quick decisions. I'm a 9 in Enneagram. I have to think through every possible scenario. I make decisions pretty slow, but thoughtful. And so that was so not me. And there was something in me that said, go. And I was like, wow, I packed my thing. I said bye to the people I knew. I was in the car, ready to go. So that's another whole story, but I want to see if you have any questions.
And no. And you don't have any cash.
Right. That's a whole big part of the story. So so the guy tells me, hey man, we'll go, it's going to, I don't know how much of money it costs. I didn't even ask him that because I was like, obviously we need to pay. This was my last stretch of the trip from Dubai to San Francisco. So I didn't have any cash on me. I just had my card. And so I told him that, hey, I don't have any cash. I have card. I can pay through card, Venmo. And he's like, I don't know what is Venmo. So that's the first thing he said. I don't know what is Venmo. And then he said, which was so powerful. He said, oh, Finny, don't worry about it. Just receive. It's okay. Just get home safe. Just receive. And then for a second, I'm like, that's such a Christian jargon. And I was so shocked that he would say that. And in my head, I'm like, no, that's okay. I'm still going to send you this money through the bank, all of that. Like, this is the beginning of the journey. And I was shocked. And I again realized my role there, because I have nothing to offer, no money. I was just sitting in a wonderful, like, SUV looking car in the back. And this guy was managing everything to get me to Muscat Airport.
And you don't speak Arabic?
I don't speak Arabic. None of that. He doesn't speak Arabic either. He's the Indian guy, speaks Hindi. And he's the one who's managing this whole trip. And suddenly, I mean, really, God revealed that time to me. Sit and receive, and you will get through the process, So that was wild. And again, at that time, I'm thinking it's going to be a few hundred dirhams, not a big deal. Maybe this guy has, he's a generous man. He's maybe well-to-do. He's okay. I'm thinking all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's where the journey starts. So I start to Oman. It's supposed to be a 4-hour journey. Long story short, it became an 11-hour journey.
And this is across the desert, right? Like, you're not, you're not like going where like every, hour there's another, city or gas station, place to stop and go to the bathroom. Okay.
Yeah. Mountains of sand, beautiful. Like, I mean, it's nice to see sand from outside. I'm sure it's terrible when you go in there, but it's just sand and camels, dude. Like, I don't know if it's wild camel or domesticated camels all over. And we're driving, and it's just like eternity of sand, right? Just like long strips of sand. And we get to the Oman border. Our goal was this driver would take us all the way inside. So once we get to the Oman border, it's another almost 3.5 hours or 3 hours or so. So this guy will take us. That was the thought. But when we got there, apparently the Oman border force changed their law, or in the process of changing their law, that they're closing the border. So they would not allow any UAE cars to go inside through it. So I had to get out, make a decision again, get out, exit Dubai, go through Oman immigration, get entry, and then take an Omani taxi to the airport.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, and I'm so confused how to make this decision, because now I'm out of the hotel from what Emirates gave me. I'm about to exit out of Dubai. I will probably get stuck in Oman. That's what I was thinking, which is like terrible situation, because, Oman doesn't have all these kind of air defense systems like UAE has. UAE has way better systems. And then I did hear by the time missile stuck at Oman port. And by this time, a missile or a drone or something stuck in Dubai airport, T3, where I actually landed. So there's so many things that is happening around. But this guy says, let's get out, let's exit. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Sure. He's leading the way. And we go through it. We get to the immigration of Oman. There were 4 or 5 buses full of people. Now, this immigration place is only good for like probably 10, 15 people. And there were close to 400 or 500 people waiting for it. So I felt like there's going to be another 2-3 hours to get through it.
Yeah, right.
He was so smart. He quickly go and talk to an Oman taxi driver who was out there, just to make sure that by the time we get out, we have a taxi.
Yeah.
The taxi driver becomes extremely compassionate, and he says, I don't know if it's compassionate or it's corruption or whatever it is. There is something happens. The dude says, Habibi, he calls Habibi, right? He goes, Habibi, I'll help you. He gets us some card, gets us through the line, all the way in front of the immigration officer, and gets us checked in with immigration within 10 minutes. And we're literally out, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, this is a godsend situation here. And then we get into the car. And I'm thinking this guy will take us to the airport. He drives us about 10 minutes. By this time it's dark, right somewhere in the freeway, and he stops and he says, let's talk about money. I was like, okay, let's give him the money that he needs. So usually it's about a 200 dirham.
So he waited till you were away from the military presence at the border and out in the middle of nowhere again, right? Like you're outside of town, you're in the desert, camels walking around. Okay, let's talk about money. This is a great time to talk about money. Yes.
You know what? He takes his hat out. I have a picture of that. He takes his hat out. He doesn't receive the cash in his hand, puts his hat on the thing. And he's like, let's talk about money. And so we're like, okay. So in my head, he's like, probably it's 300 dirham, maximum 500. The dude says,
so what's that in dollars? What's that 300 dirham in dollars approximately?
I'm not sure. So at the
is it like $100 or $1,000?
No, way less than that. Way less than, probably it's in the range of close to 50, 60 or something like that. I'm not sure.
So we're talking,
we're
50
talking
to $200, something like that. Okay, sweet. Keep going.
And suddenly he says, oh, no. It's 3,000 dirham. So I was like, no, it's not 3,000 dirham. No. 500. No, 3,000. Otherwise, I'm going to take you guys back. You're going to exit and you're going to go back to Dubai. And I told him that, dude, no, we're not doing that. That's a mess. Long story short, this guy, my friend, didn't have much of dirhams. He had some dollars. We calculated the number. It all comes around $800. I mean, $700, $800. Said, okay. And he gives him the money. And now I'm like freaking out because I'm like, this is a lot of money for a guy who lives in India. And so I said, man, dude, tell me your bank account. I want to send this money. Like, I'll send it right now. It's like, no, Finny, I don't want to deal with the taxes that comes with it and all. You go home safe. It's okay. And I'm literally now this has to be God,
Yeah.
So we get out, we pay him that. But after 20 minutes, the dude stops somewhere and he says, there's another guy who will take you all the way to the airport. The dude only speaks Arabic. That guy comes in. He drives for an hour and a half. He stops.
Okay, this is your third taxi. So you're now in your third taxi. Okay.
Getting the third taxi. And they're like, no, my son needs to go to hospital, so I need to jump. It's all in Google Translate. Now we're talking. And then we get to the third one. And after 45 minutes of that guy is like, I'm not paid. I need 50 Omani Riyal. Now, Oman Riyal is way bigger than UAE dirham. And this dude is like, dude, no, we already paid. It is what it is. And it's like, no, I'm going to stop here. And then I said one thing, that, well, get us to the airport, then we'll give you. He showed us the airport. He's like, that's the airport. And he stopped. And man, my friend, that guy, his name is Tarun. He took all money that he had, dirham, dollars, everything, and gave him, was like 50, 60, and gave it to him. We ended up in Oman airport. Here's another crazy thing. I walk into Oman airport. I can't thank this guy enough for getting me all the way here.
He just dropped $1,000 probably on, getting you out of Dubai, right? Out of UAE. Okay.
And I'm like, I don't even know how to thank you. He's not coming to San Francisco. He's going back to India, and then from there, what happened was, though I remember, I look to the board where we talk about flights. I see by this time on the road, I booked my ticket to India to get out of here. I see that plane is canceled. And I'm like, this
wait a second.
Crazy.
So you left Dubai without a flight out of Oman?
Without a flight out of Oman. I booked it after the immigration.
Okay. Leaving on. Let's go, man. We're just going. Yes. Okay.
And
that sounds
no flights to San Francisco, right? I'm just trying to get out of here, right? And then I see this flight is canceled, and I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I take risk? I'm not a risk taker. This was all a wrong decision, man. You just everything the enemy can say is all over. And I keep on looking at it, and then turns out my flight to the same destination is still there. There was another flight to the same destination that was canceled. Multiple planes were canceled. Only a few planes were going. And relieved. And then from there, I booked the rest of the tickets from India, Kochi to Singapore to Korea, and then Korea to San Francisco. Wow. And each of those spaces, there was, God's provision was so real. I was in Singapore airport for 18 hours and, connected with a bunch of people and talked to folks and read a lot, prayed a lot, processed as much as I could. I was in Korea. There was a meeting in California that I was supposed to take, and I thought that I would not be able to take it. I didn't know. I just landed Korea, just thinking I have 4 more hours. What to do? Let me see if that meeting is still going. In 10 minutes, that meeting was about to start. So I took that meeting in Korea. It was a Kappa Sui meeting. And man, and through it all, I was praying. I could not afford one more problem to happen. And one great miracle also happened. It's maybe a small thing, but I need to share this. 2 different flights, Singapore Airport Airline and Korean Airways, right? I took 2 different planes. So my bag was checked in Singapore Airlines, and it's 2 different airlines. I've never heard 2 different airlines connecting their bags, which means that I'll have to get out in Korea, do immigration, and then I didn't want to do none of that because I couldn't take one more mistake.
Right.
But somehow the Singapore airline people said, don't worry about it. We'll get you in San Francisco. I couldn't believe that. I did not believe it. I was like, I don't care if the bag goes. I cannot get lost. So I went through the process, came to San Francisco, saw my bag. God was in the process through it all, man. And it was landed. When I was in Korea, I prayed, North Korea, just sleep through this night. Do not make any problem. Do not test missiles, none of that. And man, landed San Francisco, got out, saw my family and my kids, and that was a real moment. Just to hug them and to be close with them. And then since then, I've been praying and processing and spending time with them and friends and ministry and all, and grateful. If there's one word I could say, yesterday I was taking a walk around our campus here, just praying. I realized it is wonderful to be back in boring, Almaden. But man, this place is beautiful. The sky is beautiful. There's no sound of missiles, and you got to be grateful for a lot of things. And
Mm-hmm.
my prayer is that my eyes will be open to see what God is teaching me through this process. Ears will be open
Yeah.
to hear what He's
Yeah.
saying, and then I hope that it will be beneficial for people that I serve and minister.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, it's an incredible story. That's one of the reasons I was happy you would share it with us. And you know, from this side of the world, when you first sent that text and showed the photo of your flight path, you know, going up over Iran and circling back around, it was one of those where you're like, I can't believe this. I see in the Guardian as I'm reading about what's happening. It's like literally there's a paragraph about your flight, like,
That's right.
and the flight from whatever the airlines leaving for San Francisco, you know, rerouted back to Dubai. And I'm like, dude, national, you know, international news is talking about the flight my buddy is on. This is unbelievable. But, and then 2 days on our side, 2 or 3 days went by without hearing from you. And there was, I know a few of us that were like, I don't want to bug him because he's in the middle of it. And who knows, maybe internet's, I don't know what he's doing, but there's part of me like, I'm just going to keep praying, but I'd really like it if I just got a text from Finny, just a little something that's like a thumbs up. I'm like, I'm alive. Sweet. Good. You know? And, finally, I think it wasn't until you arrived in India or maybe you're on your flight out, I forget, that we got. And I was literally praying over dinner with my wife, Penny, and, closed my eyes, prayed for you, opened my eyes, and there was a text from you. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I appreciate that. That is a quick answer to prayer, and I'm happy that he's safe and on his way home. And I just love the story of how hope just kind of infiltrated through that. And I bring that up specifically, and I want to talk about this maybe a little more in just a second, because I want to ask you about your time in India. Because while you were there, you were meeting with people who have been persecuted for the cause of Christ, part of the persecuted church. Right. And so I'd love just maybe a 5, 6, 7 minutes on that part of your journey there. But I am amazed at how God weaved hope through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And how he used you as an instrument. And I think this is a reminder to all of us that, you know, we enter into places and we don't know what's going on with most people's lives. In this case, Finny had a great insight into what everybody was experiencing at the same time, which was, I didn't expect to be here in this hotel lobby, and I didn't expect bombs to be going off over me. And I am fearful, terrified, my controlled life, because most of us, especially in the Western world, we have a very controlled life. Right. I control when I come, I control when I go, I control, you know, most of the inputs and outputs, not everything. I mean, we realize that we're actually less in control than we think we are, but all that to say, I'm able to make sure that my life mostly, hopefully, goes the way that I expect it to. And there was a group of people there who that was not their story that day. That Saturday, that Sunday, that Monday, that life had been turned upside down. And what does it look like when a Christian steps into that with an idea of, I'm going to trust in the Holy Spirit to give me words, and I want to just, you know, be that sweet aroma. I'm in 2 Corinthians right now in my devotions. I'm afraid that I might be in it all year. There's so much in that book. I just keep reading it over and over. But this morning I was reading that we are an aroma, an aroma of life to the people around us. And there's other kinds of aromas that we can be to people who don't know Jesus. But that idea, and I was reading that today and just thinking, like, you were a sweet aroma walking through that lobby. In a place where around is an aroma of war, you were an aroma of hope. You were an aroma of bringing Jesus into that space. And as Christians, that's what we're supposed to do everywhere we go. And you had an opportunity, and grateful you stepped into that and allowed that to be there. I do want to ask you, would you tell us a little bit? So let me give you a little back story, but like when Finny told me he was going to India to meet with people in the persecuted church, Finny and I just really launched this new kind of initiative with CapSV. So we're working through stuff, and it lies on me, but we work together very closely on this. And when I'm thinking, you're going to take a week off at the end of February to go to India, bro, we got work to do. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, no, God's leading him. I didn't say anything. I'm just keeping it to myself. I'm like, I'm happy. God put that on your heart. You got an opportunity. You went for it. I love that. So would you talk a little bit, just what did you learn when you were meeting with people who had been in prison? Or give it a little context for the people that you met with, kind of some of the stuff that they go through somewhat regularly. And then kind of, if you have one insight that you've kind of pulled out of that.
Yeah. I went there to connect with in North India, where churches and Christians have been persecuted in a very interesting, systematic way, because there is a law in India which is called the anti-conversion law, which is used indiscriminately and unjustly to people by just simply someone can say, somebody talked to me about Jesus and tried to convert me. And the first thing that they would do is to put them in jail and then have the conversation. So a lot of pastors are in fear. So I actually wanted to see this rather than hear about it from news and stuff like that. So I met with about 15 people who were actually been in jail in the last 2 years. My thought was folks will be fearful and very careful, and none of them were. There was not even any amount of fear in them. They almost felt like, yeah, we follow Jesus and that's what happens. You go to jail. Man, that's cool. And it was interesting because they did not deconstruct why God did this to them. It was very eye-opening to me. Because, I live in a context where even when another fellow Christian says something to me, my first reaction is, oh God, why did you do this to me? And it is interesting that they are being persecuted just because of their faith, and still they were willing to follow him, and without fear. And so that was the biggest thing I noticed. And there was pure joy in the way they served Jesus, lived their life, and their trust was not in their resources or their strategy or any of that. It was the fact that a group of persecuted people were doing this together. And it is interesting. I think so that is how first century church felt too. It was a group of persecuted people were living the way of Jesus, and there was something powerful in it. And I think it's going to create major impact in India. A lot more people are going to know Jesus, a lot more opportunities there. I have a major desire to see what we can do to help witnesses and leaders there, and to do soul care for them and support them in ways we can. So that was the biggest learning in that trip.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That is that's so good. Yeah, let's not reckon with the American church. Let's let them continue with whatever's working, man. If you're going to prison for Jesus and you come out and you're not afraid and you still got that boldness, I think I told you this story, and this is all the way back, literally September 2001. Like I was in India on 9/11 2001, which was quite an experience to be that far away from home while the Twin Towers are being anyway, all that. But I remember driving through a community with a pastor, and there was somebody, a couple walking by, and it looked like they maybe had tracts in their hand, or they're talking to people. And he's like, oh yeah, they just got out of jail yesterday, and they're already still, they're already out, evangelizing, talking to people. And in the moment, I'm thinking to myself, what's the matter with you? You just got arrested. Like, why are you back on the street again? Like, just go home for a couple of days, go to a church service, or I don't know, something, but why would you put yourself in this danger again? And of course that's, naivety and out of context and all of these things, but that boldness, compared to a lot of the boldness that we have in the US is extreme, and amazing that would be, people's response to prison. So, all right, I got two more questions for you. This is the recap for where you're at. I know you're still processing all this, but what's one takeaway you have at this moment based on your 10, 11, 12-day trip? Do you have one takeaway that you can kind of concisely tell us kind of where you're at in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is the hope that we have in Jesus is a very real thing in whatever dark places that we may be. And it is as real as your next breath. And I'm so grateful that we have that. And my prayer is that if you do not know it or if you're doubtful about it, to get back to knowing it, seeking it, because there was something pure about that hope. Um, and I also do think, because of our life here, things are pretty predictable and safe. Our hope is built on top of that. But if the predictability goes and if the safety goes, and when you experience hope in that pure sense, you have no control but the fact that God has a plan and He has a purpose and He's in control. Whatever may be, we are secure in His hand. I, it's a beautiful thing to experience. I'm grateful that I did experience that, and I want more people to experience that. I want to experience more of that in my own life, and so that is one big thing. And the other one is the only thing that lasts in life in the long run is the formation that God is doing in your life and your family. And, rest everything else kind of goes away. And it's all great. It's wonderful. It's meaningful, purposeful, all of that. But at the end of the day, for me, at least in this season, those are the two things that I see that will last for a long time. So that was my thing. And I hope that brings hope to people, that this story will bring Jesus at the center of it, bring you back to who Christ is and the formation that Jesus does, and to seek Him more and to love Him.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for that.
My
This is
my
my
one question at the end of it was all of this, that if even if the story didn't turn out this way, and if it had turned out in another way, would I still love Jesus the way I love Him? And I hope my answer is yes. But that's not what I experienced. But that is a big question I had. And then just bringing it to our context, I do think I experienced this because I do think Silicon Valley needs this hope more than anything else in the coming years with all the changes that is happening. It is only the hope in Jesus that will last. And I want to find ways to communicate this hope as easy way as possible to folks here.
yeah. I love that. You got anything else? Any other nuggets you want to bring us right now?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Then this is my last question. What's exciting you right now? What's one thing? Could be in your home, could be a Bible verse, could be something to have with your kids. What's one thing when you think about it just puts a smile on your face?
Yeah. For me, I think so. Especially going through this experience too. I think with the work that both me and Elliot is able to do, and the work that I've been doing with WestGate, it is about outside the walls of the church. We're trying to see what does it look like for folks to go outside the walls of the church and serve other people. I think what I'm excited for the most is I do think so. It's not only serving people who are in need. I think we are creating an army of people who would know how to suffer with and to bring hope to people. And we are thinking that we are trying to help someone who is in need, but God is forming us for a time like this in Silicon Valley, where we can hold the pain of others, sit with the pain, learn how to suffer with. My devotion today was from Jeremiah 15, and one of the names of God is you are long suffering. God's one of His name is He's long suffering. And I think creating a group of people who can learn and willing to suffer with, and not just show up for an hour, that's what I'm excited most for. That's the kind of work that I think God has allowed you and me to do for this region. And my prayer is that we would create an army of people who would be able to communicate and live out the hope of Jesus when things are dark and confusing and divisive and war and all of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Finney, Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I am just excited for us to get this out there and for people to hear just a little bit about your journey from Dubai back to the US. And for everybody out there today, let's all live faith first. Hey, you're still here. That means you enjoyed our episode with Finny Abraham. Wasn't that an incredible story? This is now the third, maybe fourth time I've heard pieces of it, and every time I am encouraged to hear it. Now, here's what I want to know. What's one thing you can do today to live out hope around you? Maybe in your home, maybe in your workplace, maybe at the grocery store when you're out and about in your community. But write down in the comments, what's one thing you can do to live hope and put hope into people's lives today? All right, everybody, let's go live faith first.